Greetings, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this video. I am Richard Taylor, the author of Blue Lights and my Rearview, founder of Taylor House Publishing. Just here with a brief excerpt concerning one of the topics in the book. 2 days ago was the 1 year anniversary of our sister, our beloved sister, Breonna Taylor's murder. And a lot of people are once again hashtagging to say her name and bringing up the incident that caused her death. I think to date there's still been no justice served. But I just want to read this excerpt in honor of her, which I highlighted her death in the chapter called 2020, which highlights a lot of the police killings that we saw in that year. So I'm going to read this brief 1.5 page excerpt from the book, Blue Lights in my Review. And here it goes, starts on page 266. Approximately a week after Arbery's death and long before the video was released, a Louisville, Kentucky woman was shot by plainclothes police officers as she lay in her bed. Probably because there was no video of the shooting, the case didn't garner that much national attention for a while. However, with the exposure of Arbery's murder, the case gained traction. The hashtag of Say Her Name, made popular in the case of Sandra Bland, was reborn. On March 13, 2020, white officers Jonathan Mattingly, Brett Hankinson, and Miles Cosgrove entered the apartment of Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, at approximately 1 a.m. in the morning. The policemen were executing a now infamous no-knock warrant, which gives them permission to barge into a residence without announcement. The warrant was supposedly for a person who no longer lived in that apartment. Alarmed, Mr. Walker, who was a legally registered gun owner, grabbed his firearm. Suspecting that the police were intruders, he fired a warning shot in defense of his home. In response, the officers, who did not announce themselves, fired 32 rounds into the bedroom through a window and the patio door. Mr. Walker was uninjured. However, the 26-year-old emergency room technician Breonna Taylor was killed when 6 of the bullets entered her slumbering body. Initially, the boyfriend, Mr. Walker, was charged and arrested for attempted murder. He was subjected to jail or home confinement for nearly 2 months before being released. As usual, the police attempted to criminalize him, Breonna, and her ex-boyfriend as being part of an elaborate drug ring. Months after the shooting, Mr. Walker broke his silence and told his version of what happened. Although Taylor's death was ruled a homicide by the coroner, no charges were filed against the police. The self-handled investigations ruled the officers were justified in their use of force, like so many before them. This decision caused the usual outrage and protests sprang up in Louisville and around the nation in Breonna Taylor's name. With the pandemic and the subsequent cases that were caught on tape, much pressure was placed on the Louisville Police Department to bring charges. On September 23, 2020, the grand jury indicted only one of the officers, Hankinson. As a slap in the face to Taylor's death, the officer was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment. The charges stem not from her death, but due to the bullets that entered the domain of the white family who stayed next door. Charges of homicide were never presented to the grand jury in regards to Taylor. Last paragraph. Instead of justice for the family, the state of Louisville agreed to pay Taylor's family $12 million. This was the largest payout ever to the family of a black woman. However, it was given before the charges were ever brought against the officers. This was a telltale sign that the officers would go unpunished. And that's the end of, Breonna's case that I talk about. But I talk about, about 20 high-profile cases in the book, and all of them have the same sequence of events, where someone is killed by the police, that person is criminalized. Charges are not brought up. Then there's outrage, and then there's some form of um, patty cake charges, as we see in this manner, where the officers are charged, and then they are the outrage is quelled, and then there's a payout, and in this case, most of the payouts come when after the trial or after charges are brought. But in this case, they paid her $12 million. Now, my question is once again, if they are paying, if the state or the city is paying for the death, that means they accept responsibility for the death. And so if they're accepting responsibility, then that means somebody has done something wrong. And as we see, they didn't charge the officers with her murder. They charged them with endangering another family in a different apartment, which shows no regard, no respect for Mrs. Taylor's death, or no accountability on the officer's one-time negligence in the homicide of Miss Taylor. And I think to date, once again, there's no murder charges. As I read, no murder charges were ever presented to the grand jury, which is another slap in the face to this woman. And as we see with the boyfriend, Mr. Walker, he was charged with very serious accounts, which in my assertion, it is made to dissuade him from telling the truth of what happened, because he can pretty much probably tell you that things didn't happen as they as they are portrayed by the police. But nevertheless, the $12 million is a tactic that's going to silence the family. That's going to be justice, but there's no amount of money that can account for the loss of the life of a daughter, a girlfriend, a grandchild, or whatever the case may be that Breonna Taylor was. She was a human being, and those the hashtags just doesn't do it justice. So once again, that's why I put those accounts in the book, because we are outraged for a while, but then life goes on back to normal until something else happened. So that's one of the reasons for me writing the book. Heard George Floyd's case, Rashard Brooks, just so many others were instrumental in the completion and the compilation of this book. So if you do want to read more of this book, it is the history of police criminalization of black people, police actions against blacks from slavery to the black codes, Jim Crow, civil rights, COINTELPRO, the war on drugs, Clinton's crime bill, mass incarceration, the killings we see today, and some of my own experiences. So once again, I thank you for tuning in. Blue Lights in My Rear View is available at TaylorHousePublishing.com, www.taylorhousepublishing.com, or you can receive and all my novels directly from myself, Richard Taylor. Call me directly, 919-587-7782. But I thank y'all for once again tuning in. God bless you guys. Stay safe. More to come.